I never imagined I'd be the kind of man who would strike a woman. My father raised me better than that. Taught me you protect women. You respect them. You'd rather take a hit than give one back. But here's what nobody tells you about principles. They get tested when someone you love becomes someone you don't recognize. When Charmaine's hand connected with my face that night, something fundamental broke between us. Not just our marriage, my tolerance for her betrayal. When I responded in kind, when I defended myself, I set off a chain of events that would destroy her completely. My name is Greg Anderson, and I'm 37 years old. Some of you reading this have stood where I once stood. Betrayed, attacked, expected to absorb abuse because of who you are or what society expects. This story is for you. For anyone who's been told to be the bigger person while someone else tears your life apart. This is what happens when you stop being the victim and become the reckoning. Charmaine thought she could hit me and face no consequences. She learned otherwise. So did everyone who enabled her betrayal. But let me start from the beginning. Before I go any further, let me know in the comments where in the world you are watching from. And make sure to subscribe because tomorrow I will share a story you don't want to miss. I'm a project manager at a construction company. 37 years old, pulling in 6 figures, nice house in the suburbs, 15 years with Charmaine, married for 12 of them. No kids. We'd been trying, but she kept saying the timing wasn't right. The timing was right for fucking her coworker, apparently. I'd suspected for 3 weeks before that Tuesday. Little things at first. Charmaine checking her phone constantly, hiding the screen when I walked by. New lingerie in the drawer that I never saw her wear. Late work meetings at the marketing firm where she'd been employed for 6 years. You know how it is when you know something's wrong, but you're trying to convince yourself it's not? That was me for 3 weeks. Telling myself I was being paranoid, that marriage goes through phases, that I was working too much and seeing problems that weren't there. I came home early that Tuesday, finished the site inspection faster than expected, figured I'd surprise her with takeout from that Italian place she liked. Her laptop was open on the kitchen counter, messages still up on the screen. I stopped in the doorway, takeout bag in hand, staring at words that rewired my entire reality. Months of explicit texts with someone named Damien from her office, hotel receipts attached to messages, photos I'm not going to describe because they're burned into my brain permanently. Damien Whitmore, creative director, the guy she'd mentioned exactly twice in 6 years, always casually, always in passing. I set the takeout down, walked to the counter, read every message I could stomach, which wasn't many. 4 months. She'd been fucking him for 4 months. I sat down at that counter, her laptop turned toward the door, and I waited. 20 minutes later, I heard her key in the lock. The door opened. She was humming something, carrying her purse and a coffee cup from the shop near her office. "Greg? Why are you—" She saw the screen. Her face went white, then red. "You went through my computer?" "I went through my wife's computer in my house, yeah." My voice didn't sound like mine. Too calm, too cold. "Damien Whitmore, creative director. The guy you've been fucking for 4 months." She didn't deny it. That's what got me most. She didn't even try to deny it. Instead, she went on offense. "Maybe if you paid more attention to me instead of your construction projects, I wouldn't have needed someone else." "Needed?" I stood up slowly. The chair scraped against the tile. "You needed to cheat? You needed to destroy our marriage instead of, I don't know, having a fucking conversation with me? Don't you dare judge me." She was screaming now, her face twisted into something ugly. "You have no idea what it's like being married to someone who's never home, who's always tired, who can't even— I worked to give us this life." I gestured around our beautiful kitchen, the one I'd saved for, the house I'd bought. "Everything here I provided. And you repaid me by spreading your legs for some marketing douchebag. That's when she hit me. Open palm, hard across my face, snapping my head to the side. The kitchen went silent except for my breathing. My cheek burned. I could feel the shape of her hand on my skin. You don't get to hit me, I said quietly. You called me a... I hit her back. Not as hard as I could have, but hard enough. Across the same cheek she'd struck. Her head snapped sideways, and she stumbled against the counter, hand flying to her face, eyes wide with shock. We're done, I said. Completely done. And here's what's going to happen. You're going to pack a bag and get the fuck out of my house tonight. Tomorrow, my lawyer files for divorce, and every single person in your life is going to know exactly what you did. She touched her reddening cheek, tears starting. You hit me. You actually hit me. You hit me first. But unlike you, I'm not a coward who strikes and expects no consequences. I pulled out my phone. Get out. Now. Or I call the police and show them these messages, tell them you attacked me, and let them sort it out. This is my house too. No. This is the house I bought with my income, that has my name on the deed. You want to lawyer up and fight about it? Great. We'll also discuss how you committed adultery, how you physically assaulted me, and how you're about to lose everything. I stepped closer. You broke us, Charmaine. Not me. You. And I'm done being the good guy who takes your shit. Her face crumpled, but I felt nothing. The woman I'd loved was gone, replaced by this stranger who'd betrayed everything we built. She packed a bag with shaking hands. She left without another word. I stood in that kitchen, alone, and got to work. The next morning, I called Jeffrey Adamson before I even made coffee. I'd spent the night documenting everything, screenshots of every message, photos of the mark on my face, still visible, still red, credit card statements showing hotel charges. I had it all organized in a folder on my laptop. Jeffrey's office was downtown, 20th floor of a glass building that screamed expensive. His receptionist showed me in at 9 sharp. He was exactly what I expected. 60 years old, gray hair, sharp suit, eyes that missed nothing. Former prosecutor turned divorce attorney with a reputation for destroying opposing counsel. She hit you first? He asked, after I'd given him the basics. Yes. I pulled out my phone, showed him the photos I'd taken last night. The handprint was clear. 5 fingers, distinct red marks across my left cheek. I have the mark still. And you responded. I defended myself. I met his eyes. She struck me in my own home during an argument about her infidelity. I responded proportionally and told her to leave. Jeffrey leaned back in his leather chair, studying the photos. In this state, mutual combat is a thing, but self-defense is stronger. The affair helps your case tremendously. He set my phone down. No kids? No kids. Good. Makes this cleaner. He pulled out a legal pad, started writing. Here's what we do. We file immediately, cite adultery with evidence, include the assault, and we go for everything. The house is yours? My name. My down payment, though she's been on the mortgage for 8 years. We'll argue primary ownership and push for buyout terms that favor you. Her 401k, any joint assets. We're splitting those, but we're making her pay for what she did. Jeffrey looked up, and I saw something cold and satisfied in his expression. I'm going to enjoy this, Mr. Anderson. Greg. He smiled. Let's destroy her legal position before she even knows what hit her. We filed that afternoon. Had her served at work by 4 p.m. I could have stopped there. Let the legal system handle it. But the thing about betrayal, it doesn't just happen in isolation. Charmaine had a whole life built on lies, and everyone in it deserved to know the truth. I called Eliza first. Charmaine's older sister, the one who'd introduced us 15 years ago at some company picnic. I barely remembered now. Greg? She sounded surprised. Is everything okay? No. I need to show you something. I sent her the screenshots, waited while she opened them. The silence on the other end stretched. Then, oh my God. Greg, I'm so sorry. I had no idea she was capable of… She's been lying to everyone, I said. I wanted you to hear it from me before she spins some story about me being abusive or controlling. Abusive? Eliza's voice went sharp. You've never been anything but patient with her. Too patient, if I'm honest. God, I introduced you to… I feel responsible for this. You're not responsible for her choices. I kept my tone even. But I wanted you to see the truth. Eliza was quiet for a moment. Thank you for telling me. And Greg, I'm on your side. Whatever you need. Janine was next. Charmaine's best friend since college. The one who'd been in our wedding, who'd spent countless nights at our house over the years. I sent her the same screenshots. That lying bitch, Janine said when she called me back 5 minutes later. Her voice was shaking with anger. She threw away the best man I've ever seen her with. For what? Some creative director asshole? I thought you should know before she tries to make me the villain. She can try. I won't believe it. Janine paused. I'm done with her, Greg. Completely done. Anyone who could do this to you doesn't deserve friendship. I thanked her and hung up. Then I turned to Damien. I didn't contact Charmaine's workplace directly. That would be too obvious, too traceable. But Damien Whitmore had a wife, Remy Whitmore. Easy to find on social media, her profile public, full of photos of her husband and their 2 kids. I created a burner email account. Sent her everything. Every message. Every photo. Every hotel receipt. Subject line, what your husband has been doing for 4 months. I hit send and closed the laptop. 24 hours later, Eliza texted me. Heard from a mutual friend that Damien's wife kicked him out. Words spreading. 48 hours later, HR at Charmaine's company got notified about the affair. Someone must have reported it. I sat on my couch, reading that text, feeling something settle in my chest. Consequences. Real, unavoidable consequences. 3 days after I had her served, my phone started ringing. Charmaine's name lit up the screen. I let it go to voicemail. She called again 10 minutes later. Again, an hour after that. 4 more times that evening. I didn't answer any of them. The next day, she tried a different approach. A text came through around noon. We need to talk. Please. I stared at those 3 words. Part of me, some stupid, outdated part, wanted to respond. Wanted to fix things. Make it better. Be the person who smoothed over conflict. That part was an idiot. I typed back, talk to my lawyer. She called twice more that night. I blocked her number. Saturday morning, I was making coffee when the doorbell rang. I knew who it was before I looked through the peephole. Jeffrey had told me to change the locks immediately after she left. Said it was legal given her assault. Given that my name was on the deed. I'd had them changed the next day. I checked the peephole anyway. Charmaine stood on my front porch, shifting her weight from foot to foot. The doorbell rang again. Then she knocked. Then she started shouting through the door. Greg, please, we can work this out. I stood there in my kitchen, coffee cup in hand, listening to her plead. I know you're in there. Your truck's in the driveway. Just talk to me. Yeah, I could talk to her. Or I could let her stand out there and realize she didn't get to make demands anymore. But the neighbors would hear this eventually. Better to shut it down now. I walked to the door, undid the deadbolt, but kept the security chain engaged. Opened it about 4 inches. No, we can't, I said. She looked terrible. Eyes swollen from crying, hair unwashed and pulled into a messy ponytail. Sweatpants and a wrinkled t-shirt. The woman who'd always been so put together, who'd spent an hour getting ready every morning, looked like she'd been sleeping in her car. I made a mistake, she said, voice cracking. I'm so sorry. I ended it with Damien. I told work it was over. I'll do anything, Greg. Anything you want. We can go to counseling. You ended it because his wife found out and your job was threatened, I said flatly. Not because you felt guilty. Not because you loved me. Because you got caught and faced consequences. That's not true. Tears streamed down her face. I love you, Greg. I always have. I almost laughed. You don't betray people you love. You don't fuck other men and then come home and kiss me with the same mouth. My grip tightened on the doorframe. You don't do any of what you did. I started to close the door. Her foot jammed into the gap. I hit you because I was scared and angry and I wasn't thinking, and you hit me back. We both made mistakes. That word, mistakes, like she'd forgotten to pick up milk instead of destroying 15 years. No, I said quietly. You cheated for months. You gaslit me when I had suspicions. You physically assaulted me when I confronted you with proof. I defended myself and ended our marriage. I stepped back from the door. Those aren't equivalent. Move your foot, Charmaine, or I'm calling the police. She stared at me through that 4-inch gap, looking for something in my face. Mercy, maybe. Weakness. The old Greg who would have bent over backward to make her happy. He was gone. She moved her foot. I closed the door, locked it, stood there listening to her breathing on the other side. Then footsteps, moving away, stopping. I went to the living room window, looked out through the curtain. She'd collapsed on my front steps, sitting there with her head in her hands, shoulders shaking with sobs. Something twinged in my chest. That old instinct, protect her, comfort her, make it better. The reflex of 12 years of marriage, 15 years of being together. Then I remembered those photos on her laptop. Damien's hands on her skin, her face in those images, twisted in pleasure I hadn't seen in months. The twinge died. I turned away from the window and went back to my coffee. 2 weeks in, Jeffrey was a machine. Filing motions, demanding discovery, making Thomas Rodriguez, Charmaine's lawyer, work for every single inch of ground. The guy was competent enough, maybe mid-30s, but he wasn't Jeffrey. Nobody was Jeffrey. I was starting to think this might actually be clean. Quick. As clean as divorce gets, anyway. Then Jeffrey called me into his office on a Thursday afternoon. "We've got a problem," he said, before I'd even sat down. He slid a stack of papers across his desk. I picked them up, started reading. Counterclaim. Domestic violence. Charmaine alleging I'd struck her without provocation, that she feared for her safety, that the assault was part of a pattern of controlling behavior throughout our marriage. My hands went cold. "It's bullshit," Jeffrey said, watching my face. "But it's smart bullshit. She's trying to flip the narrative, paint herself as the victim instead of the cheating wife who attacked her husband." "I have the texts," I said, hearing my voice come out too tight. "I have photos of the mark she left on me. We documented, and she has photos of the mark you left on her." Jeffrey leaned back in his chair. "Here's the problem, Greg. Society gives women more benefit of the doubt in domestic situations. Doesn't matter that she hit you first. Some judges, hell, a lot of judges, will see a man hitting a woman, and that's all they'll see." My stomach dropped. "So what do? We fight. We get character witnesses, people who've known you both, who can testify you were never controlling or abusive. We document everything about that night, about your marriage, about her affair, and we pray we get a judge who's willing to look past the optics and see the truth." Jeffrey met my eyes. No smile now, no cold satisfaction. "I'll be honest with you, Greg. This just got a lot harder." I sat there holding those papers, feeling like someone had punched me in the gut. After everything, after her betrayal, her attack, her lies about why the marriage ended, she might actually win? "She's claiming I controlled her," I said slowly, "that I monitored her, isolated her from friends, managed the money so she couldn't leave. All provably false, Jeffrey said. She had her own accounts, went out whenever she wanted, maintained friendships. But proving someone wasn't controlling is harder than you'd think. It's about perception. He tapped the papers. Rodriguez is betting a judge will see size difference, see that you hit her, and assume the rest of her story must be true. I remembered Charmaine on my front steps last weekend, sobbing, looking destroyed, playing the victim even then. What are our chances? I asked. Honestly? 60-40 in our favor. Maybe 50-50 if we get the wrong judge. Jeffrey's jaw tightened. The affair helps us tremendously. Her financial misconduct helps. But if she's convincing on the stand, if she cries at the right moments, tells her story with enough detail, some judges eat that up. You ever feel the ground shift under you? Like everything you thought was solid suddenly isn't? That's what this felt like. I defended myself, I said quietly. She attacked me in my own home. I responded to stop the threat. That's it. I know. And we're going to make sure the judge knows it too. Jeffrey pulled out a legal pad. Start making a list of character witnesses. Friends, family, co-workers, anyone who's seen you and Charmaine together, who can testify about your marriage. We need people who'll say under oath that you weren't controlling, that she had freedom, that this pattern of abuse narrative is fiction. I nodded slowly. Ken would testify. My sister Carmina. Maybe some guys from work who'd met Charmaine at company events. What about her friends? I asked. The ones who already cut her off after finding out about the affair? Even better. Women who knew her well, who've turned their backs on her because of what she did. Jeffrey made notes. Eliza, Janine, they'd be powerful witnesses if they're willing. I stood up, still holding the counterclaim papers. My hands had stopped shaking, but my chest felt tight. After everything she'd done, Charmaine was trying to make me the villain. We're going to win this, Jeffrey said. Not a question. A statement. I wanted to believe him. I left his office 20 minutes later, sat in my truck in the parking lot, stared at the counterclaim papers on my passenger seat. She might actually win. After cheating, after lying, after attacking me, she might convince a judge I was the abuser. No, absolutely not. I started the engine and headed home. If Charmaine wanted to lie about me, wanted to paint herself as some trapped victim of an controlling husband, then I was going to make damn sure the truth about her was so clear, so documented, so undeniable that no judge could ignore it. She'd opened this door. Time to show her what came through it. The next 2 weeks, I turned into a detective of my own marriage. Every night after work, I'd come home and spread documents across my dining room table. Receipts, credit card statements, bank records, emails I'd printed from our shared accounts. The paper trail of 15 years together. And I was looking for every inconsistency, every lie, every piece of evidence that would show exactly who Charmaine really was. The affair evidence came first. Hotel stays on nights she'd told me she was at marketing conferences, except the conferences were in different cities, or didn't exist at all. Expensive dinners at restaurants we'd never been to together, always for 2 people, always charged to her personal credit card. Purchases from lingerie boutiques, high-end perfume, jewelry I'd never seen her wear. She'd been dressing up for him, buying herself gifts with our money to impress her boyfriend. I documented it all, photographed every receipt, every statement, organized them chronologically in a binder with tabs and notes. But the financial stuff, that's what made my blood run cold. Our joint checking account, the one we both had access to, showed a pattern I hadn't noticed while I was living it. Small withdrawals over the past year, 300 here, 500 there, occasionally 1,000. Never enough to trigger my attention when I glanced at statements, but consistent enough that when I added them up, the total hit nearly $40,000. $40,000. I traced where the money went. Charmaine had opened a separate account 8 months ago. Her name only, at a different bank. Every withdrawal from our joint account had been transferred there within a day or two. She'd been planning her exit, building herself a nest egg so she could leave me whenever she wanted, all while fucking Damien and sleeping in my bed and pretending we had a future. I sat there at my dining room table staring at that evidence, and something shifted in my chest. Not anger anymore, something colder, clearer. This wasn't a woman who'd made a mistake. This was someone who'd been systematically dismantling our marriage for months, preparing to abandon me, stealing from me to fund her escape. And now she was trying to paint me as the abusive one. I called Jeffrey the next morning, brought him everything. He spread the documents across his conference table, reading through them with that sharp prosecutor's focus. When he looked up, there was genuine satisfaction in his eyes. This is gold, Greg. Pure gold. It's financial misconduct, right? During the marriage? Absolutely. She had legal access to the joint account, so it's not theft in the criminal sense. But in a divorce proceeding, Jeffrey tapped the bank statements. This shows premeditation, shows she was planning to leave while hiding assets. Combined with the adultery and her false domestic violence claims, we're building a picture of someone who's calculating and fundamentally dishonest. Will it help against her abuse allegations? It undermines her credibility completely. She's claiming you were controlling, that you managed the money so she couldn't leave. But she had full access to your accounts and systematically moved $40,000 without your knowledge. Jeffrey leaned back. That's not a trapped victim. That's someone executing a plan. Relief loosened something in my shoulders. I need character witnesses next, I said. People who can testify I wasn't controlling or abusive. Start with whoever knows you both best. I called Ken that afternoon. We'd been friends since college. He'd been at our wedding, knew our whole history. I need you to testify, I told him, about me and Charmaine, about our marriage, about the fact that I was never controlling or abusive. Ken didn't hesitate. Absolutely. She's pulling this victim bullshit when you're the one she cheated on? Hell no. I'll testify. It'll mean taking time off work, sitting in court. I don't care. You're my best friend. And she's lying. I'm there. My sister Carmina was next. I drove to her place that evening, showed her the counterclaim. She read it, face getting harder with each paragraph. This is insane, she said finally. You never controlled her. If anything, she walked all over you. You saw that? Greg, we all saw it. At family gatherings, the way she'd belittle you, make those cutting remarks about your work, treat you like you were boring her. Carmina met my eyes. I never liked her. I thought she was using you. I just kept quiet, because I didn't want to cause problems. Will you testify to that? Yes. Absolutely yes. Jeffrey scheduled the preliminary hearing for 6 weeks out. When I met with him to confirm our witness list, he seemed confident. Rodriguez is competent, Jeffrey said, but I'm better. And we've got the evidence, the witnesses, and the truth on our side. And if the judge doesn't see it that way, then we appeal. But they will, Greg. Trust me. We're ready. I left his office feeling something I hadn't felt in weeks. Like maybe, just maybe, this was going to work. The courtroom felt like a freezer. Not just the temperature. Though the AC was cranked high enough I could see my breath when I exhaled. It was the sterile white walls, the hard wooden benches, the fluorescent lights that made everyone look half dead. Judge Albert Hansen sat behind the bench, 65 years old with silver hair and sharp eyes. Jeffrey had briefed me on him, fair-minded but old school about domestic violence. The kind of judge who might see a man hitting a woman and stop thinking right there. This had to go perfectly. Charmaine sat at the plaintiff's table next to Thomas Rodriguez, wearing a navy dress that buttoned to her throat, hair pulled back in a simple ponytail, Barely any makeup, playing the victim role to perfection. She didn't look at me, not once. Jeffrey stood and presented our case first. The affair, documented with screenshots of every message between Charmaine and Damien. Hotel receipts going back 4 months. The financial misconduct, $40,000 moved systematically into her private account. The assault, proven by the photos I'd taken of my face that night. The red handprint clear. Then it was my turn to testify. "Mr. Anderson," Jeffrey said once I'd been sworn in, "tell the court what happened the night of the incident." I took a breath, kept my voice steady. "I came home early from a construction site, found my wife's laptop open on the kitchen counter. There were messages between her and a coworker, explicit messages, photos, hotel receipts, evidence of an affair that had been going on for months. And when your wife arrived home, she walked in about 20 minutes later, saw what I'd found. Instead of apologizing or explaining, she went on the attack, blamed me for working too much, said I'd driven her to cheat. What happened next? I told her our marriage was over, that she'd destroyed everything. She got angrier, started yelling. I said some things I'm not proud of, called her out for the affair. She slapped me, hard, across the face. Jeffrey nodded. "And how did you respond?" "I told her not to hit me. She tried to justify it, said I'd provoked her. So I hit her back. Same cheek she'd hit me on. Then I told her to pack a bag and leave my house." "Why did you strike your wife, Mr. Anderson?" I looked straight at Judge Hanson. "I defended myself. She attacked me in my own home during an argument about her betrayal. I responded to stop the assault and make it clear I wouldn't tolerate being hit. Then I told her to leave." Thomas stood for cross-examination. He was younger than Jeffrey, maybe 40, with that aggressive energy some lawyers mistake for competence. "Mr. Anderson, you're what, 6 feet tall?" "Yes." "And you weigh approximately 200 pounds? "Around that." "Your wife is 5'5", weighs maybe 130, correct?" "Approximately." Thomas spread his hands. "So when this small woman slapped you, you felt so threatened you had to hit her back." "She assaulted me," I said evenly. "Size doesn't determine whether assault is acceptable. If I'd hit her first, my size wouldn't excuse it." The same applies in reverse. Isn't it true you were angry about the affair? That you used her slap as an excuse to hurt her? No. I told her to leave. When she refused and became physical, I defended myself and repeated my demand that she leave my home. I kept my eyes on Judge Hanson. I'm not proud I hit her, but I'm not going to apologize for defending myself after she struck me first. Thomas kept pressing, trying to make me sound controlling or violent. I kept my answers short and honest. When I stepped down, Charmaine took the stand. She cried, talked about being afraid of me, claimed I'd been controlling and jealous throughout our marriage, said the affair happened because she felt trapped. "He isolated me from my friends," she sobbed, "monitored my phone, controlled our money. I felt like I couldn't breathe. Every word a lie. But emotionally effective lies? I could see it in how the court reporter's expression softened, how Thomas nodded sympathetically. Then Ken testified. "Greg never controlled Charmaine," he said firmly. "She went out whenever she wanted, spent money freely, had plenty of friends. If anything, Greg was too accommodating. She walked all over him. My sister Carmina backed him up. My brother is the gentlest man I know. He bent over backward for her, and she repaid him by cheating and lying about abuse when she got caught. The financial evidence was damning. Thomas tried arguing the withdrawn money was for household expenses, but Jeffrey had receipts showing it went to spa days, shopping trips, dinners with Damien. After 2 days of testimony, Judge Hanson called a recess. "I need to review all evidence and testimony," he said. "We'll reconvene in 1 week for my ruling." Jeffrey and I stood as the judge left. Across the courtroom, Charmaine was crying again, Thomas leaning close to whisper something. "How do you think it went?" I asked Jeffrey quietly. "We presented a strong case. Now we wait. 1 week. 7 days to find out if the truth would be enough." 1 week later, Jeffrey and I walked back into that same cold courtroom. My hands were steady, but my heart hammered against my ribs. Judge Hanson looked tired when he took the bench. "I've reviewed all testimony and evidence presented in this case," he began. "This is a complicated matter with serious allegations on both sides." I stopped breathing. The affair is well documented and not disputed by either party. The financial misconduct is also clear. Mrs. Anderson systematically moved marital assets into a personal account without her husband's knowledge. Across the courtroom, Charmaine's face went pale. Regarding the domestic violence claims, Judge Hanson paused, glancing at his notes. "I find Mrs. Anderson's testimony not credible. The evidence clearly shows she initiated physical contact. Mr. Anderson's response, while regrettable, appears to have been defensive rather than aggressive. Multiple witnesses have attested to his nonviolent character throughout this marriage, while no evidence supports a pattern of controlling or abusive behavior." Thomas slumped in his chair. Jeffrey remained perfectly still beside me, but I caught the gleam in his eyes. "Therefore, I'm ruling in favor of Mr. Anderson on the primary marital issues. The house remains his property, with Mrs. Anderson receiving a modest buyout based on mortgage payments made during the marriage. Marital assets will be split, minus the $40,000 Mrs. Anderson misappropriated, which will be credited to Mr. Anderson's share." My chest loosened. Air filled my lungs. Mrs. Anderson's domestic violence counterclaim is dismissed with prejudice. The divorce is granted. Final decree will be issued in 30 days. Charmaine started crying. Not gentle tears, harsh, ugly sobs that filled the courtroom. I felt nothing, just a cold satisfaction that truth had won. Jeffrey shook my hand. "That's about as complete a victory as you can get in family court." I watched Thomas lean close to Charmaine, whispering something while she covered her face with both hands. She looked destroyed. Good. 6 weeks later, the divorce decree arrived. Official, final, stamped by the court. The house was mine. I got 65% of our marital assets, and because we'd been married less than 15 years, Charmaine got nothing from my retirement accounts. The financial win felt good, but the personal destruction? That was better. Damien's wife Remy had divorced him within 2 months, took primary custody of their kids, and made damn sure everyone in their social circle knew exactly why. I heard through the grapevine that Damien couldn't show his face at school pickups without other parents whispering. His company demoted him. The affair violated ethics policies about relationships between employees. He stuck it out for 3 months before quitting. Charmaine lost her job too. Not officially because of the affair, but her performance had tanked after everything came out. The company reorganized her position out of existence 6 weeks after our divorce was finalized. She'd moved in with a friend right after the preliminary hearing. That lasted maybe 2 months before the friend got tired of supporting her emotionally and financially. "She's living with our parents now," Eliza told me over coffee one afternoon. I sipped my drink. "How's that going?" "Not great. She's unemployed, can't find work in her field. Everyone knows what happened." Eliza looked tired. "She tells anyone who'll listen that you destroyed her life." "I didn't destroy it. I just stopped supporting it." I met Eliza's eyes. She destroyed her own life when she made her choices. Eliza nodded slowly. "Janine won't speak to her anymore. Neither will most of her friends. They all saw the evidence, heard what she did. Nobody wants to be associated with that." I thought about Charmaine, 40 years old, living with her parents, no job, no friends, no future she'd planned. The nest egg she'd built? Gone to legal fees and living expenses. Everything she'd worked for, destroyed. By her own hand. "What about you?" Eliza asked. "How are you doing?" "Better." And I was. I'd started going out again. Not dating exactly. Just rediscovering what it felt like to have a social life that wasn't defined by Charmaine's betrayal. Drinks with Ken after work. Dinners with my sister. Small victories. But they mattered. "Good," Eliza said softly. "You deserve to be happy." I finished my coffee, looking out at the street beyond the cafe window. People walking past, living their lives, carrying their own burdens. I wasn't carrying Charmaine anymore, and damn, that felt good. Several months after the decree, I was finally feeling like myself again. Not the guy who'd been married to Charmaine, the guy I'd been before all that. Maybe even better. I was leaving the construction site office on a Thursday evening when I saw her, Charmaine, standing by my truck in the parking lot. She looked worse than at the hearing. Thinner, face harder, eyes desperate, like someone who'd been ground down by their own choices. I stopped 10 feet away. "What are you doing here?" "I need money." Her voice was flat, blunt. "I can't find work. I'm broke." "You got everything in the divorce?" "I need help." "You got exactly what you deserved in the divorce, and I don't owe you anything." "I'm homeless, Greg." Her voice rose, echoing across the parking lot. "I'm sleeping on my parents' couch at 40 years old because you ruined my reputation." "No." I pulled out my keys. "You ruined your own reputation when you fucked your coworker and then lied about being abused. You need to leave." "I'll go to the media," she screamed. "I'll tell them you hit me. I'll ruin you the way you ruined me." Several of my co-workers had stopped, watching. This was bad. I kept my voice calm. "You do that, and I'll sue you for defamation." Everything was settled in court. A judge found you lied. If you make public accusations now, you're opening yourself to legal consequences. I got in my truck. "Go home, Charmaine. Move on with your life." She slammed her hands on my hood. "This isn't over." I drove away, watching her shrink in the rearview mirror, standing alone in that parking lot. But she'd rattled me. And she'd made a scene at my workplace. The next morning, Steve called me into his office. "Greg, what the hell was that yesterday?" I sat down, stomach tight. "My ex-wife. She showed up demanding money." "Your ex-wife." Steve leaned back in his chair. "The one from the divorce you mentioned?" "Yeah." I explained it all. The affair, the lies, the court ruling, everything. Steve listened, then nodded slowly. "Okay, I believe you. But if she comes back and causes more trouble, we've got a problem. I can't have employee drama spilling into the worksite." "Understood. It won't happen again." But walking out of his office, I worried it would. Charmaine was desperate, irrational. Who knew what she'd do next? I called Jeffrey from my truck. "She showed up at your workplace?" His voice went cold. "Made threats? Threatened to go to the media. Slammed my truck. Made a scene in front of my coworkers. That's harassment. I'm filing for a restraining order today." Papers rustled on his end. "With the history and the court findings, we'll get this easily." He was right. Judge Hanson granted a temporary restraining order within 48 hours, pending a full hearing. 2 weeks later, we were back in court. Charmaine had a new lawyer. Apparently, she'd fired Thomas. Younger guy, nervous energy, clearly outmatched. "Your Honor, Mrs. Anderson was simply trying to communicate with her ex-husband." "She threatened to make false public allegations," Jeffrey cut in. "She caused a scene at his workplace. She's engaged in a pattern of harassment after losing decisively in divorce court. My client deserves protection from continued abuse." Judge Hanson looked at Charmaine. "Mrs. Anderson, you were found to have lied under oath about domestic violence. The court ruled against you on every material issue. Now you're showing up at Mr. Anderson's workplace, making threats?" Charmaine's lawyer opened his mouth, but Judge Hanson raised a hand. "Restraining order is granted." 500 feet minimum distance from Mr. Anderson, his home, and his workplace. No contact whatsoever, direct or indirect. Violation will result in contempt charges. He signed the order. We're done here. I watched Charmaine's face as the words sank in. Pure hatred, mixed with despair. Like she'd finally realized she'd lost everything, and there was nothing left to take. She'd tried one last move, and it had backfired completely. 6 months after the restraining order, I attended an industry conference downtown. Standard stuff, panels on project management, new construction software demos, networking that mostly involved comparing notes on difficult clients. That's where I met Diane Taylor. She was standing by the coffee station between sessions, reviewing the conference app on her phone. 34, professional but approachable, project manager at a competing firm. The scheduling software panel worth it? I asked. She looked up. If you enjoy watching salespeople pretend their product does things, it absolutely doesn't. A slight smile, but the integration discussion was solid. We talked shop for 20 minutes, then grabbed lunch, then somehow ended up having dinner that night, still talking about work, but also not. It felt easy, normal. Our third date, I figured honesty was better than surprises. Full disclosure, I said over Italian food at a quiet place near the river. I'm recently divorced. It was ugly. My ex cheated. We had a whole court battle, and she's now subject to a restraining order. Diane set down her fork, listening. I gave her the abbreviated version. The affair, the assault, the lies, the verdict, the harassment that led to the order. When I finished, she was quiet for a moment. So you're worried I'll judge you for protecting yourself from someone who betrayed and attacked you? Some people might. She reached across the table, squeezed my hand. Well, I'm not some people. You sound like someone who valued his marriage and refused to be a victim when it ended. That's admirable, Greg. Something in my chest loosened. We started seeing each other. Nothing too serious yet. We were both cautious, both carrying baggage from previous marriages, but there was something real and honest that I hadn't felt in years. One evening, walking through the park near my house, she stopped by the pond. I like that we're taking this slow, she said. No pressure, no expectations, just seeing where it goes. Yeah. I watched ducks glide across the water, same ones I'd watched with Charmaine years ago. Different now. Slow is good. And it was. Having someone who valued honesty, who communicated, who didn't play games, it felt like remembering what normal was supposed to be. I told Eliza about her over coffee. I'm happy for you, Greg, she said sincerely. You deserve someone good after what Charmaine put you through. How is she? I asked, more curiosity than concern. Eliza sighed. Working retail, still living with our parents, bitter, angry, blames you for everything. A pause. I've tried telling her she needs to take responsibility, but she won't hear it. We barely talk anymore. I felt a moment of something, not quite pity, not quite satisfaction, just recognition that Charmaine had destroyed her own life, and I'd simply refused to go down with her. 1 year after the divorce was finalized, I ran into Charmaine at the grocery store. She looked older, hair going gray, face lined with stress. She saw me, froze, clearly debating whether to run or approach. She approached. Greg, she said quietly. Charmaine. I kept my tone neutral. We were in public, and technically the restraining order didn't apply to brief incidental contact in public spaces. But I wasn't taking chances. I heard you're seeing someone. Not angry. Just tired. Yeah. Taking things slow. But yeah. I'm glad. She looked down at her cart. Discount brands, generic labels. You deserve to be happy. So do you, I said, surprising myself. But happiness isn't going to come from blaming me for your choices. Her voice cracked. I know that now. She met my eyes. I just wanted to say, I'm sorry. For all of it. I don't expect forgiveness. I just needed you to hear that I finally understand what I did. I studied her face. Broken, but sincere. I appreciate that, I said. Genuinely. But it doesn't change anything. What happened between us is done. I've moved on. You should, too. I'm trying. A sad smile. Your girlfriend is lucky. You're a good man. I just couldn't see it until I'd destroyed everything. We stood there in the cereal aisle, two people who'd once promised forever, now strangers. Take care of yourself, Charmaine. You too. I walked away. Didn't look back. That evening I met Diane for dinner and told her about the encounter. How do you feel? She asked. Honestly, I don't know. I pushed pasta around my plate. She seemed genuinely sorry. Broken. And I felt aware that she destroyed her own life. You didn't do that to her, Diane said firmly. She made her choices. You just refused to be destroyed along with her. I know. I just don't. She reached across the table again. Don't second-guess yourself. You protected yourself. You stood up for the truth. That's not something to feel guilty about. She was right. After dinner, she paused before getting in her car. I don't know where this is going with us, she said, but I want you to know I see you, the real you, and I like what I see. Same, I said. And for the first time in a long time, I'm okay with not knowing where it's going. Okay with just seeing what happens. She smiled. Good. I watched her drive away, then sat in my own car. Clear night, stars visible despite the city lights. Windows down, cool air washing through. My life wasn't perfect. Still rebuilding. Still figuring out who I was outside the marriage that had defined most of my adult life. Diane might work out, or she might not. The future was uncertain in ways it hadn't been when I was married, but uncertainty felt better than the slow poison of Charmaine's betrayal, better than lies and pretending, and the gradual erosion of everything I'd thought was solid. I heard through Eliza that Charmaine had moved to a different state. Fresh start attempt, lower-level marketing job, therapy, slowly rebuilding. She asks about you sometimes, Eliza mentioned. Not in a creepy way. I think she's trying to make peace with everything she lost. I hope she finds peace, I said honestly, but I'm glad it's far away from me. My life now was quiet in a good way. Work was going well. Promotion, bigger projects. Ken and I went to baseball games on weekends. Carmina and I had family dinners every few weeks. And Diane was there when we both had time. No pressure, no expectations. Just two people who'd been through the ringer, learning to trust again. Some nights I sat on my back deck, my deck, in my house, that I'd fought for and won, thinking about that night in the kitchen, Charmaine's hand across my face, my response. The moment everything changed. I still wasn't proud I'd hit her, but I wasn't ashamed either. She'd attacked me, and I'd defended myself. Everything that came after, the divorce, the financial destruction, her social isolation, the restraining order, those were consequences of her choices, not mine. Charmaine had hit me that night, expecting me to take it, to absorb her anger and guilt and blame the way I'd apparently absorbed everything else in our marriage. Instead, I'd hit back, not just physically in that moment, but in every way that mattered, with truth, with legal action, with consequences. I'd defended myself, protected my future, refused to let her destroy me along with our marriage. Some people say revenge is hollow, that the best revenge is living well. They're wrong. The best revenge is living well and making sure the person who wronged you faces the full weight of their choices. That's not cruelty. That's justice. And justice feels pretty damn good when you're the one still standing at the end, with possibilities ahead and nothing left to fear from the past. Whatever happened with Diane, whatever the future held, I knew I'd face it on my own terms, not as someone's victim, not as someone's fool, just as a man who refused to go down without a fight, and won. I believe stories such as this find us for a reason. If this one touches you, please subscribe. I share a new one every day. In the meantime, there are 2 stories on the screen that are even better.